There was a time when diamonds were so rare and expensive they were mostly worn by royalty. Then, in 1866, right after the end of the American Civil War, and not long after the California Gold Rush, a 21 and a quarter carat diamond was found in South Africa. When another large stone was found 2 years later, the diamond rush was on. Thousands headed for the Vaal River and what came to be known as the Valley of Diamonds. It was a grueling trip. After making the long journey to Cape Town, they faced a punishing trek over rough terrain to reach the diamond fields. Once there, though, a certain liveliness and camaraderie showed itself as miners arrived from all over the world. At first, the prospectors mined the gravels of the Vaal River using several methods to wash the dirt and gravels they collected. Swirling the mixture with water causes the lighter materials to wash over the edges of the pan, leaving behind the heavier gravel which might contain diamonds. A variation on this is the rocker box, which did just what it said, rocked instead of swirled. Again, lighter material washed away, leaving the heavier and possibly more valuable gravel. The sluice employs raised slats to catch the heavy gravel, washing lighter material down a long trough. Finally, the miners sorted the heavy gravel by hand, checking each and every grain. It was tedious work, but dreams of finding the next large diamond made it seem worth it. Things started to get crowded in the Vaal River. Some folks decided to move outward onto dry land and continue their search. They called these dry diggings, and they were rewarded for their persistence when they found diamonds in a type of rock they called yellow ground. Prospectors began staking 30 to 31-foot claims all over the landscape, and more people arrived. Stories of diamonds littering the landscape lured them, much like the stories of streets paved with gold during the California Gold Rush. In fact, many of these miners were veterans of the gold rush. A town began to grow. Buildings sprouted like mushrooms, mostly out of corrugated iron with canvas roofs. But many people still lived in tents. Supplies were expensive, available only through a 40-day ox cart delivery out of Cape Town. Illusions of instant wealth were quickly shattered. Mining was back-breaking work. Picks and shovels were the main tools. Then there was the painstaking process of sieving and sorting for diamonds, if there were any. And of course, it was all done in blistering heat. But then, the yellow ground ended, and the diggers reached a harder rock which they called blue ground. A lot of them gave up their claims, thinking they had reached the end of the diamond-bearing layer. Those who stayed were rewarded. They soon discovered that blue ground was just unweathered yellow ground. And in this way, the first diamond pipes were discovered. Claims began to get deeper and consequently harder to work. Claims were on all different levels, most needing ladders to reach the bottom. Floods and cave-ins made the work more dangerous. For easier access to the mine, the miners agreed to leave 15-foot roadways between the claims. But as traffic increased and claims got deeper and deeper, there was less support for the sides of the roads. And when eager diggers undermined the roads, they began to collapse, taking lives with them. So the next stage began. They erected a vast web of steel cables stretching into the growing pit. Horse-powered winches hauled buckets and carts carrying blue ground and workers in and out of it. One digger wrote, "It needs a firm nerve to stand upon the brink alone where I am now standing and look through the running gear, the great network of metal ropes that cover the face of the kopje. I've seen strong men tremble, whilst they looked into this great human anthill. The giddy heights, the noise, the bustle, the elbowing are sufficient to bewilder anyone." As mining became more complicated, many individual claim holders gave up. Others joined together to form partnerships. These grew into small companies. The small companies merged into larger companies or were bought out. The end result was De Beers Consolidated Mines, most famous nowadays for their ads that declare, "A diamond is forever." And systematic mining began. Since then, various mining methods have been tried and revised until mining practices today are much more efficient and certainly safer